Hello students, this is Zebra by Sean Potok, page 47 in your language of literature. The actual story starts on page 48. Please make sure that you have your zebra character out and your inferences page out. Okay? Alright, I will go ahead and start. You follow along. He couldn't remember when he began to be called by that name. Perhaps they started to call him Zebra when he first began running, or maybe he began running when they started to call him Zebra. He loved the name, and he loved to run. When he was very young, his parents took him to a zoo, where he saw zebras for the first time. They were odd-looking creatures, like stubby horses, short-legged, thick-necked, with dark and white stripes. Then one day he went with his parents to a movie about Africa, and he saw zebras, hundreds of them, thundering across a grassy plain, dust rising in boiling brown clouds. Was he already running before he saw that movie, or did he begin to run afterward? No, one seemed able to remember. He would go running through the neighborhood for the sheer joy of feeling the wind on his face. People said that when he ran, he arched his head up and back, and his face kind of flattened out. One of his teachers told him it was clever to run that way. His balance was better. But the truth was he ran that way, his head thrown back, because he loved to feel the wind rushing across his neck. Each time...
Wimberly, if you're on campus, please come to the office. Lenise Wimberly, please come to the office.
Sorry about that. Each time, after only a few minutes of running, his legs would begin to feel wondrously light. He would run past the school and the homes on the street beyond the church. All of the neighborhoods knew him and would wave out and call out, "Go, Zebra!" And sometimes one or two of their dogs would run with him a while, barking. He would imagine himself a zebra on the African plain, running. There was a hill on Franklin Avenue, a steep hill. By the time he reached that hill, he would feel his legs so light it was as if he had no legs at all and was flying. He would begin to descend the hill, certain as he ran that he needed only to give himself that slightest push, and off he would go, and instead of a zebra, he would become the bird he had once seen in a movie about Alaska. He would swiftly change into an eagle, soaring higher and higher, as light as the gentlest breeze, and cool wind caressing his arms and legs and neck. Alright, so this actually now is going to be the first story detail. So what you're supposed to do is I've already given you in class the story detail. Now you need to give me experience. So what kind of similar experience have you had like this? Well, for Mr. Larson, when I run fast, I sometimes feel like I could fly. What can I infer? Okay, so what am I inferring from the story? Based on my experience, based on the story details, what can I infer? Zebra is running really fast. Okay, you inferred this. This was just inferred because of these two things. Okay, so that's how you do the story details. I'm not going to show you how to do the rest. Through the story, there is going to be, I know, one other one that you're going to have to infer for today's homework. So let's go ahead, now that we've stopped, we can also do some traits and motives about zebra. So what might be a trait? Well, likes to run, right? That's one of zebra's traits. Okay. What's one of his motives? Emotions, wants, or needs that cause a character to act or react. So what are his motives? Well, what are his motives to run? Wants to feel what? Free. Like an eagle. Didn't we just read that? Okay, so that's how that's done. So as I'm reading, and this is a video, you can stop at any point. I want you to do traits. So traits are permanent things about his quality, about the character's character. I'm sorry, let me say that again. Permanent traits about the character's personality. Motives are the reason why they do things. Okay. So as you're listening to me read, fill out zebra. When we get to John Wilson, fill out John Wilson, and listen for those story details. All right, let's continue. Right here. Then a year ago, racing down Franklin Avenue, he had given himself that push and had begun to turn into an eagle when a huge rushing shadow appeared in his line of vision and crashed into him and plunged him into a darkness from which he emerged very, very slowly. I'll give you a hint. This is another one of those story details that you're going to have to infer. So what just happened to him? That's what you need to know. Never, never, never run down that hill so fast that you can't stop at the corner, his mother had warned him again and again. His schoolmates and friends kept calling him Zebra, even after they all knew that the doctors had told him he would never be able to run like that again. His leg would heal in time, the doctors said, and perhaps in a year or so the brace would come off. But they were not at all certain about his hand. From time to time his injured hand, which he still wore in a sling, would begin to hurt. The doctor said they could find no cause for pain. His legs... One morning during Mr. Morgan's geography class, Zebra's hand began to hurt badly. He sat staring out the window at the sky. Mr. Morgan, a stiff-mannered person in his early 50s, given to smart suits and dapper bow ties, called on him to respond to a question. Zebra stumbled about in vain for the answer. Mr. Morgan told him to pay attention to the geography inside the classroom and not to the geography outside. In this class, young man, you will concentrate your attention upon the earth, not upon the sky, Mr. Morgan said. Later in the schoolyard, during the mid-morning recess, Zebra stood near the tall fence, looking out at the street and listening to the noises behind him. His schoolmates were racing about, playing exuberantly, shouting and laughing with full voices. Their joyous sounds went ringing through the quiet street. Most times Zebra would stand alongside the basketball court or behind the wire screen at home plate and watch the games. That day, because his hand hurt so badly, he stood alone behind the chain-link fence of the schoolyard. Again, I believe this is something that you have to infer about Zebra, so take a look. That's how he happened to see the man, and that's how the man happened to see him. One minute the side street on which the school stood was strangely empty, without people or traffic, without even any of the dogs that often roamed about the neighborhood. Vacant and silent, as if it were already in the full heat of summer. The red brick ranch house that belonged to Mr. Morgan, and the white clapboard two-story house in which Mrs. English lived, and the other homes on the street with their columned front porches and their back patios, and the tall oaks, all stood curiously still in the warm golden light of the mid-morning sun. Then a man emerged from wide and busy Franklin Avenue at the far end of the street. Zebra saw the man stop at the corner and stand looking at a public trash can. He watched as the man poked his hand into the can and fished about, but seemed to find nothing he wanted. He withdrew his hand and, raising it to shield his eyes from the sunlight, glanced at the street sign on the lamp-post. He started to walk up the street in the direction of the school. He was tall and wiry and looked to be about 40 years old. In his right hand he carried a bulging brown plastic bag. Real quick, they're talking about Mr. John Wilson right here, so you might want to add some of these things to your paper. Okay. He wore a khaki army jacket, a blue denim shirt, blue jeans, and brown cowboy boots. Now remember, only permanent things. Okay. So some of these things are not permanent. Some things are permanent. His gaunt face and muscular neck were reddened by exposure to the sun. Long brown hair spilled out below his dark blue farmer's cap. On the front of the cap, in large orange letters, were the words Land Rover. He walked with his eyes on the sidewalk and the curb, as if looking for something, and he went right past Zebra without noticing him. Zebra's hand hurt very much. He was about to turn away when he saw the man stop and look around and peer up at the red brick wall of the school. The man set down the bag and took off his cap and stuffed it into a pocket of his jacket. From one of his jeans pocket he removed a handkerchief, with which he then wiped his face. He shoved the handkerchief back into the pocket and put the cap back on his head. Then he turned and saw Zebra. He picked up the bag and started down the street to where Zebra was standing. When the man was about 10 feet away, Zebra noticed that the left sleeve of his jacket was empty. What can you infer? If the left sleeve of his jacket is empty, what do you think's wrong with this man? The man came up to Zebra and said in a low, friendly, shy voice, "Hello." Shy sounds like something of a character. Zebra answered with a cautious "hello," trying not to look at the empty sleeve, which had been tucked into the man's jacket pocket. Another answered with a cautious hello. So do you think Zebra might be a cautious person to new strangers? Maybe that's a trait that you want to add to your sheet. The man asked with a distinct southern accent, "What's your name, son?" Zebra said, "Adam." "What kind of school is this here school, Adam?" "It's a good school," Zebra answered. "How long before you all begin your summer vacation?" 3 days, Zebra said. "Anything special happening here during the summer?" "During the summer? Nothing goes on here. There are no classes." "What do you all do during the summer?" "Some of us go to camp. Some of us hang around. We find things to do." Zebra's hand had begun to tingle and throb. Why was the man asking all those questions? Zebra thought maybe he shouldn't be talking to him at all. He seemed vaguely menacing in that army jacket and dark blue cap with the words Land Rover on it in orange letters and the empty sleeve. But there was a kindness in his gray eyes and ruddy features. Again, gray eyes, ruddy features. The man gazed past Zebra at the students playing in the yard. "Adam, do you think your school would be interested in having someone teach an art class during the summer?" That took Zebra by surprise. "An art class?" "Drawing, sculpting, things like that." Zebra was trying very hard not to look at the man's empty sleeve. "I don't know." "Where's the school office, Adam?" "On Washington Avenue. Go to the end of the street and turn right." "Thanks," the man said. He hesitated a moment, then he asked in a quiet voice, "What happened to you, Adam?" "A car hit me," Zebra said. "It was my fault." The man seemed to wince. Why do you think Mr. Wilson would wince after what Zebra just said? Wince means to take a step back, almost as if to say with your face, "What do you mean?" or "What's going on?" So why would John Wilson think that? After Zebra said this quote right here, why would he feel that way? For a flash of a second, Zebra thought to ask the man what had happened to him. The words were on his tongue, but he kept himself from saying anything. The man started back up the street, carrying the brown plastic bag. Zebra suddenly called, "Hey, mister!" The man stopped and turned. "My name is John Wilson," he said softly. "Mr. Wilson, when you go into the school office, you'll see signs on 2 doors. One says Dr. Winter, and the other says Mrs. English. Ask for Mrs. English." I bet this is something you could record about Zebra's personality. Seems to be kind of a helpful person, doesn't he? Dr. Winter, the principal, was a disciplinarian and a grump. Mrs. English, the assistant principal, was generous and kind. Dr. Winter would probably tell the man to call his secretary for an appointment. Mrs. English might invite him into her office and offer him a cup of coffee and listen to what he had to say. The man hesitated, looking at Zebra. appreciate the advice," he said. Zebra watched him walk to the corner. Under the lamppost was a trash can. Zebra saw the man set down the plastic bag and stick his hand into the can and haul out a battered umbrella. The man tried to open the umbrella, but its metal ribs were broken. The black fabric dangled flat and limp from the pull. He put the umbrella into the plastic bag and headed for the entrance to the school. A moment later, Zebra heard the whistle that signaled the end of recess. He followed his classmates at a distance, careful to avoid anyone's bumping against his hand. He sat through his algebra class, copying the problems on the blackboard while holding down his notebook with his left elbow. The sling chafed his neck and felt warm and clumsy on his bare arm. There were sharp pains now in the two curled fingers of his hand. Right after the class, he went downstairs to the office of Mrs. Walsh, a cheerful, gray-haired woman in a white nurse's uniform. She said, "I'm sorry I can't do much for you, Adam, except give you 2 Tylenols." He swallowed the Tylenols down with water. Alright, so that is where we're going to stop today. Make sure that you have completed both the character and inferences. You don't have to finish, but at least started on them. And we will continue reading tomorrow.